How to save tons of money in a recession. If there's one thing we all love doing, it's saving money. However, during a recession, saving money can be as challenging as not eating the cheesecake that's sitting in your fridge. Fortunately, with the 5 savings tactics you're about to learn, you'll be able to save tons of money during a recession and set yourself up for even more financial success when the economy finally turns around. If you enjoy this video, please ensure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel to ensure you don't miss any future videos. Let's get into it. Number 1. Pay off high interest debt. It's not news to you that carrying high interest debt is one of the quickest ways to sabotage your finances. As you can imagine, it's hard to save and invest when you are handing over hundreds of dollars a month to creditors rather than depositing that money into your bank or investment accounts. Sadly, right now, just under 50% of all American households are carrying some amount of high interest debt, meaning that they are making money that much harder on themselves. But how much in savings are they losing out on? Good question. Right now, the average credit card debt balance is $6,270. Making minimum payments of $100 a month, that's already $100 that could have been saved or invested. However, the issue is more pervasive than just that. At an interest rate of 21%, based on $100 repayments, it would take over 6 years to pay off, costing over $5,100 in interest in the process. I don't know about you, but I'd rather see that $5,000 in my bank account than in the coffers of greedy creditors. Now, being advised to pay off your high interest debts isn't a new concept. However, this next reason for paying it off may add a new perspective to your debt repayment game plan. Typically, people debate whether it makes more sense to pay off their debts or to invest, usually picking the one that yields the greatest returns. For example, it normally makes more sense to invest in the market garnering a 7% return than paying down a 2% mortgage. However, when the market is dipping more by the day, all of a sudden paying off debt becomes a much more appealing option, and this is where we come full circle on repaying high interest debt. If you have the option to pay off a 21% credit card balance, that's like getting a 21% market return, which is nearly impossible to realise during a market downturn. Therefore, while it's still not advisable to carry high interest debt in any financial climate, if you can make repayments during recessionary times, you may just be getting the best returns out there and saving yourself a ton of money in the process. Number 2. Have an emergency fund. You hear it all the time that it takes money to make money, but I bet you've never been told that it takes savings to make savings. Well, it's true, and I'll explain why that is right now. Naturally, when people think of seeing their savings grow, they think of the 3 cents in interest their savings account earns them, which is a pittance compared to the money banks make off your deposits. Well, in reality, having money set aside can actually be the key to saving thousands of dollars, and in a minute, I will tell you why that's the case. You see, when you have money set aside, such as in an emergency fund, it allows you to avoid the other most common form of emergency funding, which is the reliance on high interest debt. For instance, if you lose your job, have to repair your car or replace an appliance, if you don't already have money set aside, what do? The answer is simple: you charge it to your credit card. However, as we've just went over, carrying high interest debt can be incredibly taxing on your ability to save money. Every repayment is money you could have stashed away. However, when you have savings stashed in an emergency fund, you can avoid putting yourself in a position where creditors can take advantage of you. This is why it's recommended that you have a year's worth of living expenses sitting in your emergency fund. This is probably more than what you have been regularly advised to set aside, but here's the reasoning for this. The first reason you want to have 12 months of expenses saved is to reduce financial stress. During a recession, people are on edge. Their portfolios are plummeting, and the risk of job loss is always looming. As such, knowing you have money in case of emergency will naturally reduce some of your financial anxiety, and this alone is worth its weight in gold. But speaking of jobs, if you do happen to become unemployed, that year's worth of savings will come in handy. Right now, it takes the average person roughly 5 months to become re-employed, but during a recession, this timeline tends to expand. As such, again, your nest egg of savings can come to the rescue and tide you over until those paychecks come rolling in again. Therefore, if you're serious about saving money in a recession, always keep your emergency fund topped up. Number 3. Perform the 3-10 exercise. Hearing the word exercise might make you cringe, but if you're serious about saving money during a recession, then you need to adopt the 3-10 exercise as soon as possible. Now, before we get into what the 3-10 exercise involves, let's go over how this exercise came to be, which has been used by many to save thousands upon thousands of dollars. During the last recession in 2020, many people were looking for ways to ensure that their financial progression didn't stall despite tough economic challenges the world was facing. Many people were already being diligent with their investment decisions, so naturally, the only other area they could focus on was their spending. As such, they decided to challenge themselves to try and squeeze out a bit more savings, because as mentioned earlier, having savings set aside can be a godsend when riding out periods of recession. What they aimed to do was reduce their 3 biggest cost challenges by 10% each, which birthed what we now refer to as the 3-10 exercise. For most people, this involved cutting down housing, food and entertainment costs. How can you go about doing this? First, review your costs for each of these 3 items for the last 6 months in order to create an average. Then, identify how much you would need to reduce each cost in order to save 10%. For instance, if your entertainment cost is $300 a month, aim to cut that down by $30. Then begin to brainstorm ways to create those savings. Here's what you may come up with. To save 10% on my housing costs, you may decide to cancel your landscaping service. To reduce your food bill, you may cut out most of your takeaway orders. And finally, to cut down on entertainment costs, you could simply go out one less time every month. I know that the amount of savings from this exercise may seem underwhelming after just a single month, but what you don't know is that there is a secret that lies in the 3-10 exercise. When you employ this saving tactic, a few things happen. First, it forces you to review your expenses in their entirety, which you'll find help you to identify and cut out expenses you were barely using. Next, it leads to the realization of savings in your 3 biggest cost categories, which we just went over. Finally, the 3-10 exercise provides you with greater transparency in the costs you are already incurring. For instance, reducing the amount of times you go out in a month could help you realize that you didn't actually need to go out to be happy, and actually leads you to becoming more productive in the process. Most people are simply too set in their spending ways to be able to realize how many of their regular costs are providing them little to no incremental value. So when you undertake this exercise, you will naturally come to delineate your essential costs from those that could easily be eliminated. Number 4, recession-proof your income. By far and away, the number 1 determinant in your ability to save money during a recession, or any time for that matter, is your income. No matter how many saving tricks and tactics you employ, no amount of cut-out coffees or coupon collecting can replace the impact that making more money can offer, and here's an example to illustrate this point. Let's say you're an avid Starbucks drinker. If you cut out Starbucks coffee, you'll probably save yourself $200 a month, and likely send yourself into caffeine withdrawal in the process. On an annual basis, this savings tactic amounts to saving $2,400 in a year, and probably having the absolute worst year of your life. However, what if there was another way? Well, there is, and it comes in the form of making money. You see, unless you are drinking copious amounts of Starbucks every day, no amount of cost cutting will help you save money to really make the strides in your saving efforts that you desire. As such, it's much more effective to tackle your quest to save money from an income perspective. Making an extra $20,000 a year will save you more money than skipping your morning coffee ever could. However, this only works if you have a steady stream of income in the first place, which, during a recession, may prove to be easier said than done. Number 5. Don't panic sell. If you've ever been broken up with before, then you'll know just how excruciatingly painful it can be. Now multiply that amount of pain by 10, and you have how it feels to see your portfolio drop in value by 30% during a recession. Well, just like a heartbreak, the pain of recessionary dip is only temporary. However, some people make it permanent by panic selling and offloading their valuable assets at a fraction of the long-term value. Why do they do this? A few reasons come to mind. The first reason people panic sell during recession is that they are ignorant of past market performance. Most people panic sell thinking that when the market takes a dip, that it will never recover, so they try and salvage what they can before getting out for good. However, every time we've experienced a recession in the past, it has been followed by the new all-time heights. But if you're unaware of this fact, then you can easily talk yourself into selling at inopportune times. The other reason people panic sell is because they need the money and can't afford to wait until it recovers. We all know people who fall for the fear of missing out when the market starts to heat up, investing all the money they have and more. Therefore, when the market declines, don't panic. Think about what history has taught us and protect your savings by acting on logic and not emotions. This is something Warren Buffett preaches, and if you want to learn his 9 frugal living habits that you can steal today, click on the next video and let's get started.